2022, I hiked the Pacific Crest Trail, and we're doing a post-through hike Q&A. I asked the people that follow me on Instagram to send me in some questions about the PCT or about my PCT hike, and we would go through them together and see what I got to say about this stuff. So if you don't already follow me on Instagram, check me out at Jupiter Hikes. But anyway, the PCT. It is 2,653 miles from Mexico to Canada across the west coast. I started May 10th and I finished my hike August 1st. I hiked it in 84 days, so a very fast hike. And that was my goal from the start. So Marcella asks, in regards to elevation, did I ever experience altitude sickness? And also what my training looks like. I think there's going to be other questions about training, so we'll save that for later, but elevation sickness. Yeah, I did. And it was very surprising because for the past 2 or 3 years, I've lived at 7,000 feet elevation. So to deal with any elevation sickness was extremely startling, and it came in the weirdest of ways. It was tooth pain. My top row of teeth were in excruciating pain. My first night in the Sierra at 10,000 feet, and as I found out, it was actually because my sinuses were pressing down. They were clogged, and the changing of the air pressure was pressing down on my teeth. So that very much so hurt. I think you should really ease into the Sierra, even if you are experienced with elevation. Philip asks, some other videos make the PCT seem quite crowded. Did I ever feel that there are too many people? A few people asked about the crowds on the PCT, and yeah, there's a few people out there. The PCTA gives out 5,000 northbound permits per year, and I think it's about 50 people per day start from March 1st all the way until May 30th. So actually, those same permits are extremely helpful for this. I think the permits do a really great job of kind of subsiding the crowds. It's not 1,000 people can all start on April 20th or whatever is perceived as the best day to start, which I think is the best day to start varies for everyone and everyone's pace. I think you can definitely avoid them, and in the end, they're all doing the same thing that I'm doing and the same thing that you're doing, and that is enjoying the outdoors. I think if you really want to avoid the crowds, start super early. Start early March. Or start super late if you're faster. Start middle of May. Advice for someone else who left the PCT with an injury and returns with unfinished business. And for those of you who've been following this channel for a while, that's me. I did that. And a lot of people do that. I got off the trail in 2018 after breaking my foot during an attempted through hike. It was a mistake where I tripped and fell and landed on my foot in just the perfectly wrong way. My advice would be to take a really honest look at what you could have done better last time and make those changes. Whether that is lightening your pack, going slower in the beginning, taking more zeros in the beginning, maybe eating more food you weren't eating enough, training more before your hike. These are things that all people should do anyway, but try and hone it in and figure out what was kind of maybe not your downfall. It could have just been an accident that forced you to get the injury. Total accident. But I think there's always ways that all of us can improve no matter how experienced we are. Will I be doing any paintings inspired from my time on the PCT? Yes. Now, this is not the best presentation or the best lighting, but I have some paintings here. I've already done some paintings, and you can check these out on my website, jupiterhikes.com, under the shop and the Pacific Crest Trail section. Hurricane wants to know, if I had to relocate and live near the PCT, where would I choose to put roots in? Well, if you didn't know, I live out of a van. It's right behind you, big old van. So I kind of relocate all over these long trails and kind of live on them as is. But right now I'm actually looking at, that's Mount Laguna off in the distance. I'm looking there. Right up there is the town of Julian. So I'm kind of living on the PCT right now in a way, out of my van. Now, if I were to actually buy a house and money wasn't a problem, I would choose Sisters, Oregon. I think just like the proximity to the trail, the really cool volcanoes there, close enough to a larger town where you could do like actual shopping and stuff, I would choose Sisters. There are only a couple months till their start date. What's the best kind of training I might recommend? If you do want to get more specific for it, my best advice for like actually training is to go on a lot of short overnight trips. Short overnight trips, because that's going to teach you all about your gear, all about your shoes. It's going to, get your body like more physically ready. Yeah, a lot of overnight trips and small backpacking trips is the best way, in my opinion. Marie wants to know, how do I deal with the heat? I love this question because I have the dumbest answer. I would tell myself every day while walking through the desert and it was blazing hot sun, was that I was just walking on the beach. I would imagine that breeze was that salty air rolling off the ocean. The rustling in the bushes was the sounds of the waves crashing. Here I was walking through the sandy footpath. I'm walking on the beach. That's what I told myself every single day. So that's how I dealt with the heat. I think in a lot of ways it's all about mindset sometimes, And if you can kind of smile and laugh through some of these hard times, then that's the best recipe. How do you keep speed on high gain days? I don't. I walk a lot slower than a lot of people. I walk at a slow, comfortable, conversational pace. And I just do that for more hours. Or what you should consider if you want to start through hiking. I would consider, this is a great question, is this something you actually want to do? Is this something you would actually enjoy doing? Because I think a lot of people that come out and try the PCT or the AT or any other really long through hike, I think a lot of people quit because they get out there and they realize like it's just not what they thought it would be, or it's just not that fun for them. They're not enjoying it. So I would really take a hard look and ask yourself if it's something you would actually enjoy doing. And the best way to do that is through short trips. Just start out with overnight trips. Take a ton of those. If you love doing the overnight trips, that's great. You're on the good track. If you don't love doing overnight trips, that's a sign right there, I'd say. Compared to your past trips, what were the top things you learned on this hike? Nothing specific stands out for like this trail. I learned this mind-blowing thing. It's more combining all of my through hikes together, what has really sunk in on this trail, and I think that would be attitude. So my lesson here is being able to smile and laugh and make jokes about like the adversity you've put yourself in is a very positive thing, and I think it's a great way to success, because ultimately, this is a very physical endeavor. It's going to be hard. You're going to go through a lot of tough times, and being able to stay positive through those tough times, I think is worthwhile. Max wants to know, how much did my through hike cost? On my blog, on my website, jupiterhikes.com, you can see a full breakdown of all sorts of stats from my hike that I was keeping along the way, but also the money I spent. So check that out. I recommend it because I talk about like some things I could have done better maybe, and where that money kind of went. My hike was an 84-day hike, and it cost me $6,000, a little over $6,000. Now, coming into this, I was expecting to spend about $4,000, so it was kind of startling to see that I had gone $2,000 over. On average, the PCT this year cost hikers $9,000. That's average. So some people spent way over that. I heard as much as $20,000 for some people. And others spent much less than that. But in general, I think, having more money saved up is going to be a truly like winning recipe for doing one of these things. Because if you're having a bad time, well, now you can go in town and buy ice cream and get a hotel room. Whereas the really frugal hiker, if they're having a bad time, they really just got to stick it out, and sometimes that can break you. Or if you're starting to develop an injury and you're worried about money, you know, like that could be a trip ruiner. So I think just trying to keep in mind that, you know, here you are on this fantastic adventure and this vacation of sorts that you may never get another chance at. I would save up more money than less. How did I deal with footage, video footage? Would I send home the memory cards or use a cloud? I would do neither. I've never done either of those things. Mostly because I can't really use a cloud because I don't spend enough time in town around Wi-Fi, so I can't really upload my videos. And I was always freaking out about like mailing home memory cards because I didn't want them to get lost in the mail, and I thought I can probably keep them safer on my person than I trust the mail to do. The cards I started the trail with are the cards I ended the trail with. You know, I hiked all the way and I just tried to keep them safe along the way. Melios wants to know, any tips for getting out of your quilt on a cold morning before the sun? That early starts are hard. I have a stupid tip. If you sleep on a Neo Air or an inflatable pad, as soon as you wake up, deflate it. Deflate it. Because now you're going to be laying on the cold, hard ground, and what are you going to do? Just lay there for another hour? No, you're probably going to start packing up. So I would try and come up with a ton of reasons why you love hiking in those early morning hours. And hopefully that would outweigh your love of sleeping in. Sunshine Dai Tai wants to know, what was the strongest emotion I experienced on trail alone and the strongest emotion with others? Definitely my final day on trail. You know, having dreamed of this hike for so long and to be on the last day, you know, that was a heavy, heavy emotion. Something I had never really experienced before. And then after that, the very next day, you know, you can't just finish at the border. It's a super remote spot up in the Canada-Washington border. You got to hike 30 miles back to the nearest road. So here I was going southbound, and I'm running into all these northbounders that are on their last day, you know, and being on that like same wavelength of them, you know, congratulatory and sympathetic for what they're feeling. And, you know, so that was both my most intense feelings alone and my most intense feelings with others. Any gear I brought that I'd change out if I did the trail over again? For the most part, all of my gear worked perfectly, and that's probably why I'm not going to do a post-trail gear thing. You know, I'll do that for certain items that were really worthwhile, but in general, everything went as planned for me. If I had to change any one thing from this hike, though, it would probably be to have a slightly larger backpack. My backpack worked fine, it worked great, but I can't fit a bunch of baguettes in it. Having a slightly larger backpack, I think, would give me a little bit more flexibility when it came to resupply and packing out larger volume foods. Have I, or do I, have any plans on doing any route finding or off-trail hikes? Yes, actually, this year. I'm going to be doing, I think, 3 of them. So keep your eyes out for stuff like that. More challenging hikes, off-trail hikes, and we're going to see how it goes. What was the worst advice or tip I got on trail? I think it can be summed up to fear-mongering. There's so much fear-mongering, especially on the PCT like Facebook pages. Oh my gosh. You know, and in person, I would deal with that a lot too. The fear-mongering is intense, man. You know, especially with stuff that everyone has to do. So I recommend, like, if you're going to give, like, advice or tips to anyone, you know, really ask yourself, is it constructive? Joe wants to know if I have any tips on how to meet a cute girl at mile 700. I would say, in general, you should probably just leave them alone and read the room. You know, if it seems like they're busy, you should probably leave. Everyone is out there for their own reasons. And I think you should be respectful of other people's hikes. Anyway, thank you for all the questions, everyone. That was the final one. I'm so sorry if I didn't get to yours. So many questions were sent in, and I can't answer them all at this point. But I want to do these more frequently, so I'm probably going to do another one in a couple weeks, and I appreciate you for watching this. So thanks for being here.